Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. Oh, I love seeing all the lovely faces that of people. I hope you had a good New Year. And here we are again at Borders Committee, and the January 23rd Borders Committee meeting is called to order. First, I would like to ask our interpreters to explain how to access interpretation. Please go ahead.
We don't have our box. Hello?
You can go ahead and
Okay,
Just-
sorry, go ahead. Good afternoon. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting scrolls are. Click on the interpretation icon, World, and select English as your language. If you are joining through Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you are in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenas tardes, aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer el uso de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, en donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés, en el fondo, por favor, seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares para el servicio de interpretación si se encuentra en la sala de la reunión. Favor de pedir los auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledged the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples. We have since endured, sorry, endured displacement, persecution, and system oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States. From 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, Diegueño, the Luiseño, the Cupeño, and the Coahuila. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Chairman Raymond Welch, in attendance, can you do a blessing?
Mayaha, we thank you for today. We thank you for the rain, this life-giving rain that is so important to our area. We pray today for good words, for respect for one another, as we talk about issues that affect our communities and we work together. Tepekai naep mayaha, yeahan, ichpe. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Welch. And before you sit down, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Michael, can you please confirm quorum?
we do have a quorum, Chair. But I do want to note for the record that we have Colleen Wallace of Riverside County, an advisory member who wishes to participate virtually. If that's okay, I'll ask a couple questions of her.
Yes, please.
Councilmember Wallace, can you confirm that you are participating remotely due to a just cause?
Yes.
And without disclosing any medical information, can you share what that just cause is?
because I'm coming from Sacramento from a city council, mayor's academy. So I asked to be on Zoom today.
Okay, thank you. Can you confirm that you can leave your camera on the entire time for the meeting when you're participating?
Yes, I can.
All right, well, thank you. All right, that confirms here. Thank you.
That was the energy I was expecting. Thank you, Michael. Let's move on to the non-agenda public comment.
Thank you, Chair. We have, if you're online, please raise your hand now. In person, we have Purita Javier, followed by Cesar Javier.
Good afternoon. Into hands we trust. We, Cesar and Purita Javier, both seniors with existing medical condition and victims of ceramics manufacturing and kiln emissions, toxic gas located, constructed, and operated at a residential zone neighborhood since 1984. We are hurt physically, emotionally, and financially. We live in fear, depression, anxiety, stress. We need water to clear the surfaces from droplets of particulates and contaminants, and water to irrigate the plants and trees as advised by EPA Sacramento. EPA federal authority responded explaining that APCD must look at the limit of permit and that the issue falls on city zoning standard. City code enforcement referral used to APCD or air pollution jurisdiction. Stop. Director Paula Farvis of APCD says it is a nuisance cafe.
Thank you, Purita. Your time has
period.
expired. Next is Cesar Javier, followed by Andrea Edding online.
How could a husband in a small political unit just allow this hurting business approved by the city since 1984 defend and protect our well-being? How could a man convey that feeling of harm inflicted, to be specific, to our respiratory system? We are hurt emotionally. And I, as the husband, the defense secretary, could do. A warrior, yes, but not using violence. We only use our voice and body language, but can never harm you because we respect our fellow neighbors, our fellow elected. I was elected to be the husband, so I am an elected official, elected authority, particularly City of San Diego. I would be respectful. Our City of San Diego is failing. Pointing finger, whose accountability is this? We have all the documents. Oh, Mr. Javier, we will refer your case to Air Pollution Control District. Who owns the APCD? Mayor Gloria. What did they do in 2024? Ma'am Moreno? Oh, olfactory investigation. Oh, it smells rotten egg. Is that APCD scientific tasking?
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Andrea Ebbing online, and then we'll go back to Marco Espinosa in person.
Hey, it's Andrea Ebbing. I just want to thank John Duncan for outing himself, and I'm certainly going to go real deep on your financials. I promise you that. It was plenty to just see my rehab owner, my county contracted rehab owner X, the one that's involved in opioid distribution, at the same time as offering detox and rehab services nationwide, making this a RICO enterprise, right? Because it can't be a RICO enterprise unless there's a violent crime, a kidnapping, and interstate commerce, and the predicate acts, including major narcotics, right? So this checks every single box, unfortunately for everybody involved. So I'm just wondering why John Duncan had my ex's wife on October 3rd, 2020. It's on Coronado Village News. You can Google it yourself. Just Google John Duncan, Coronado, Officer Amy Beebe. Why did Officer Amy Beebe look like a chubby, fat cat holding a basket full of gift cards, Visa gift cards, right? Which is cash. That's called bribery. From my ex's wife. It wasn't the community giving thanks. That was my ex, Apex Recovery, all the names that are listed in that little blurb. And they said the way the community could participate in thanking them is to stop by and say thanks. But John Duncan put some Visa gift cards to his office, or gift cards to his office, redeemable for cash, because what else are you going to go do? Go and sit with him for a minute and what? Like, what is that gift card for? To his office? Come on. What happened? You get a DUI? You want it hidden? What happened? We don't know. I don't care. But what I do care about is the fact that you smoked yourself out, and now we know where to look. And the Family Justice Center seems to be a very hot topic. UT, if you can hear me, I'm looking at the records now. They've deleted everything, and you are on to them. But I'll tell you now, I have plenty of information to share with you, and I will definitely have plenty for next week. Thank you.
And our last public comment is Marco Espinosa.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Me llamo Marco Antonio Espinosa II. First things first. My Hispanic Heritage Month Pronto card and my Baja California Corazon public transit card. I care about public transportation and our region. Other than the board directors group, this is my favorite meeting committee of SANDAG. For personal reasons, family. This committee looks at the region as a whole, not necessarily two different cities or two different countries from a line in the sand. So I really like all the work that gets done here, because there's just so much that we're all capable of doing. Because if it wasn't for the border, well, anyway. And I'll probably be leaving today around 2:30 to 3. That's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our non-agenda public comment, Chair.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to, well, before I get to that, any non-agenda member comments today? Seeing none. Again, I'd like to welcome everyone to our first Borders Committee meeting of 2026. Before we move on, I would like to take a moment to introduce and welcome our new members to the Borders Committee. I'm sorry, I'm battling something from last month, so bear with me if I cough a little. Consul Bárbara del Castillo, who will be representing Mexico as the alternate for Consul General of Mexico, Alicia Kerber. Consul del Castillo is a career diplomat, and her last post was as the Consulate General of Mexico in Boston. And we are very happy to have her here with us today. Also, the San Diego Regional Planning Association has appointed new representative for this Borders Committee, Laura Lowe's. We are delighted to welcome you as well. We are pleased to have you both joining us, and we look forward to working closely together So welcome. As we begin a new year, this is a great opportunity to refresh our efforts and re-engage in our shared work. I want to take a moment to highlight some important changes to how we will be approaching our Borders Committee meeting this year. The board has approved a new meeting calendar, and by now you should have the Borders Committee meetings marked on your calendars for April, July, and October. With this new structure, our goal for the year would be to refresh and re-energize our meetings, making them more dynamic and engaging, more like interactive workshops, and less focused on one-way information sharing. Instead, Borders Committee would be a forum to discuss connectivity and collaboration with all of our neighbors. To support this approach, agenda items are now framed for discussion and designed to capture the interests and perspectives represented on this committee, including inter-regional perspectives, binational perspectives, government-to-government engagement with tribes. We hope this new approach will encourage richer dialogue, shared learning, and stronger collaboration across all of our partnerships. Our first agenda of 2026 includes 3 discussion items, all of which are relevant to each of us. I anticipate a very dynamic and productive meeting today. I would like to encourage committee members to actively engage in these discussions, sharing your perspectives, asking questions, and helping shape outcomes, so this committee continues to add meaningful value to the regional work. Now, I would like to turn it over to Mario for the CEO report. And happy late birthday, by the way. His birthday was December 30th. He's still receiving congratulations. So if you want to.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Welcome back to the Borders Committee. A couple of updates. IBWC Minute 333. Last month, the U.S. and the Mexican government signed the International Boundary and Water Commission Minute 333, a binational agreement to further address sewer flows in the Tijuana River Valley. The agreement commits both countries to infrastructure investments, improved monitoring, and near and long-term actions. Regarding the Tribal Working Group, the quarterly interagency technical working group on tribal transportation issues was held on January 14 at Jamul Casino Resort. Throughout 2025, we took part in a series of meetings with the board and the Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Associations and leadership. I would highlight, I think it was in November or December, Chair Heepner and First Vice Chair LaCava met with Chairman Smith from Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association to discuss the different areas of opportunity enhancing the work between Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association and SANDAG. So we're excited about the work that's coming this 2026 with the SCTCA leadership. At those different meetings, we have discussed the county and the Caltrans projects near tribal lands, including 2 capital projects that are being funded by SANDAG, the I-8 West Willows Road, and the improvements to State 76, a major curve realignment. So I think those contracts are out, and we're looking into developing project initiation documents, which are the first step to officially keep moving on a project to be implemented. We continue our partnerships. La Jolla Band of Luiseño Indians received $2.2 million in the Safe Streets and Roadways for All funding. This was working again hand in hand in trying to assist all our member agencies, including our tribal governments within the San Diego County. Also, I cannot stop highlighting that in December, the Board of Directors approved the Regional Transportation Plan for San Diego. It's a 4-year, every 4 years, that's an endeavor. Sometimes it's been a little bit more rockier than others. I think we came up with a great regional plan, much smaller, 125 billion compared to 165, 68 billion from the prior one, but it reflects our realities as a region. And it also approved the environmental document. I cannot stop to highlight that we also gave notice to proceed on the construction on Otay Mesa East, the first package. We are working on that. We'll be coming to Borders Committee to provide updates, but also to have a robust discussion as we're working in an ever-evolving world of inflations and risk of how we're going to be funding the future packages, especially the ones that we're going to be going to the bonding agencies and are reliant on ratings as well as agreements with our Mexican partners. As Chair Chavez mentioned, overall, we're trying to give a different way of working with our policy advisory committee meetings where it could be more dialogue and more interactive and not just pushing information as updates. And you'll see that at the Borders Committee. We'll continue to work with the chair to try to have robust subjects of discussions so we could all work together on that. And finally, our customer service center in Otay Mesa for our toll facilities will be closed on Tuesday, January 27 from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. for a staff meeting, and it will reopen at 1:30 that same day. That concludes my report, Chair.
Thank you, Mario. We will now move to the consent agenda. Michael, do we have any public comment on the consent agenda?
We do have one in person. If you're online, please raise your hand now. And that is Cesar Javier. Consent.
Point of clarification. Is this 3.1 or 4.1?
This is consent 3.1. Did you mean 4.1?
Yes, but since you called my name, it is a sublime duty to respond. I am okay. We are okay with 3.1. Thank you, Sandag.
Thank you. Next is Blair Beekman online, followed by Andrea Ebbing. This is a consent agenda, which is minutes.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Blair Beekman. Thank you for the minutes of October 24th. It was actually a really interesting meeting on tribal digital village improvement issues, Lithium Valley specific plan draft things. And I think the city of Tijuana planning activities got postponed, if I can recall. Oh, actually, no, it says it's here. So thank you. Good luck with this item. A good group is there at the meeting today. Thank you. Working on the future of tribal digital village improvement issues is really important. Learning how to invite the different San Diego tribes to the future of tech accountability and that all people can participate in the process of technology placement in their community is an awesome concept to consider. And I don't know how to bring such a decency to, say, tribal groups, what it can help with. I think it just offers open dialogue and conversation, and I think it sets a course for something really important to take place and how they can talk among themselves about issues. It just creates a lot of flexibility. I mean, not just locally, but basically for the world. I mean, each area has their own different ways of working, but the fact that we can have more open communication about technology is key. And we got to be practicing that stuff. So good luck in those efforts. What I mentioned, I mentioned previously at open public comment at the board of directors meeting, I forgot to include that dialogue. If we can have open dialogue with our federal level at this time about what we're doing as best practices, I hope Trump can allow that conversation to happen, because if he does,
Thank you, Blair. Your time has expired. Last public comment is Andrea Ebbing, and the item at hand is the minutes.
Thank you. This is Andrea Ebbing, and I'm just looking at 3.15, so the Lithium Valley specific plan draft. And I just wanted to follow up because one of the things that looks like her name is Barry Bean, County of Imperial. You know, just oh my gosh, it just seemed a little bit concerning to me, and I don't know if this goes into the minutes as they stand or what. But she was talking about this plan moving forward, and that the gratitude of the post activation testing, like a certain set of millions of dollars is going to be set aside to test the impacts on everybody. That feels very experimental, like human experiment to me a bit. And this Lithium Valley specific plan draft is just concerning. I just feel like we all know better than to have a battery factory so close to us. And when I was talking to some community members about this, they mentioned that there are several very, very large warehouses on the other side of some of these mountains as you go east. And he said they're being filled with batteries that are storing energy and then being sold back through SDG&E, and a whole bunch of sort of very corrupt behavior taking place in the battery space. I'm just concerned about the actual impact to our community, the water, the toxic waste and the fire hazards and the escape plan. And I don't know what's going to happen out there, but it sounds really bad. Thank you.
That concludes our public comment on this item, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Are there any border committee member comments? Seeing none, if no further discussion, may I have a motion to approve the consent item, which is the approval of minutes? Moved by Steve Coble, and do I have a second? Second by Vice Chair Eric Joyce.
Just a friendly reminder, Chair, that we take roll call vote due to the virtual participation.
Oh, that is true.
Yep.
Please go ahead.
For South County, Councilmember Chavez.
Yes.
East County, Councilmember Goble.
Yes.
The City of San Diego, Councilmember Moreno.
Moreno, yes.
County of San Diego is absent. Imperial County is absent. North County Coastal, Vice Mayor Joyce.
Abstain.
Abstain. And North County Inland is absent. And that's, if you could also click your remotes, that would be helpful as well. And that passes, Chair.
Thank you. We will now move to the next item, number 4, which includes 3 reports for discussion. I will adjust the order of the agenda. Again, sorry. I will adjust the order of the agenda so that item 4.1 goes first, followed by 4.3 and then 4.2. Let's begin our reports with item 4.1, a discussion item. I am pleased to introduce our next presenter, Scott Strelicky. I'm sorry if I'm chopping up your last name. From the Southern California Association of Governments, SCAG, Kenya Samaripa from the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce, Lucas Coleman from the San Diego Regional Economic Development Corporation, and Jennifer Williamson from SANDAG. Scott will provide an overview of SCAG and LA's 2028 Games Mobility Executives Program Framework and TDM strategy, developed by last year to help the region anticipate and respond to impacts on the transportation system while identifying opportunities to create a new regional legacy. Jennifer and Kenya will provide an introduction from our San Diego regional perspective. And finally, Lucas will close offering a local perspective. Thank you, Scott, Kenya, Lucas, and Jennifer for joining us today. Please go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Chair. My name is Jennifer Williamson. I'm the Deputy Director of Mobility Planning here at SANDAG, and I am SANDAG's key point person on the TDM Forum for the LA 28 Regional Olympics. So we're very early in the process, and Scott's going to tell you all about it, but We have regularly attended the TDM forum meetings, and at those meetings, there's a lot of information disseminated about where the future Olympic Games will be held, how residents and businesses will be impacted by the games, and how we might participate in the region. So based on our initial information gathered to date, SANDAG is considering a couple of ways that we may get involved. We will potentially be using our TDM employment outreach group that covers about 200 plus different employers within the region and reaches over 400,000 employees. And we'll use that forum to disseminate information about the games, how to get to the games, and then also correspondingly where different events are happening as well. We also understand that freight is going to be impacted by the games. You know, we have a lot of goods movement that's coming across the border and through our ports that travel up through LA. And so we've been working with the Games Mobility Executive Committee to establish where and how the different roadways would be impacted and how we can facilitate getting goods through the area during the games, while the games are occurring. At this point, again, I'm going to say we are very early in the process, but we are so encouraged and very excited to participate in this activity. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the chamber staff.
Hi, thank you. And I appreciate again the opportunity to offer a few remarks on behalf of both the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce and my role as Vice Chair of the City of San Diego's International Affairs Board. And really, just to jump on a conversation here, when we talk about LA 28, the Olympic Games, as well as the FIFA World Cup, it's important to recognize that these are not just solely based in LA. They are global events with regional implications that will be felt all across Southern California, including here in San Diego and through our binational region here in Tijuana. And from the Chamber's perspective, these events really provide strategic opportunities to San Diego for us to leverage that increased global attention. And beyond direct travel to host venues, we expect opportunities for regional attractions. This is, fan fest, cultural programming, related events, watch parties that can drive significant economic activity here to the region. And it's important to support our tourism industry, which remains one of our key economic engines, a key driver of jobs and small business growth. Individuals visiting San Diego spend over $14 billion annually during their stays, and this activity is also providing support to 1 out of 8 local jobs, And from a binational perspective, we are uniquely positioned to benefit from an increased cross-border tourism and global visibility tied to events of this scale. So that makes very important that we have thoughtful planning and coordination. I look at SANDAG and really thank for that. I'm grateful to have that conversation started here. And really work closely with Scott, with Southern California partners and locally to leverage these global events and enhance our tourism industry and connectivity. As was just said, I really hope that this is just the beginning of a conversation and we can each think about the roles that each of us play and making sure that mobility-wise, tourism-wise, business-wise, we are prepared and that we can together leverage this as an opportunity to further develop our economy here locally. So with that, Scott, thank you for being here. I guess that was a drive, but I appreciate you.
Okay, yes, thank you very much for having me, Chair, members of the Borders Committee. And I think like Jennifer and Kenya both stated, I'm really here to try to present, probably 20 minutes, a little less than 20 minutes of information, speaking to kind of the points that they've just laid out here. So my name's Scott Strelecki. I'm a planning supervisor here at the Southern California Association of Governments. I'm a supervisor within our goods movement or our mobility and goods movement department. And if we could get to the next slide, please. So the games will span multiple cities, welcome thousands of athletes, and draw millions of spectators and media representatives. And while we have valuable past examples to learn from, the Olympic and Paralympic Games have grown significantly over time. Each cycle adds more sports, more participating nations, and more events. The 2028 Games will be no exception. Anticipated travel demand is often described as the equivalent of hosting 7 Super Bowls per day during the Olympic Games and 2 Super Bowls per day during the Paralympic Games. While we recognize that visitors will be coming to Southern California for the 2028 games and venue locations specifically, it's equally important to acknowledge that these visitors will also be exploring the region as it has so much to offer based on its diversity of activities and things to do. This will place visitors across the region based on their accommodation and preference considerations to experience Southern California. And clearly, this will be a tremendous benefit for communities throughout the region, but will also create challenges based on transportation and mobility needs. Our region now has more residents than ever before, meaning we must prepare not only for games-related travel, but also ensure that daily life for locals continues. We also need to prepare for goods movement, as mentioned by my colleagues here. Southern California is a global logistics hub with tens of millions of containers moving through our ports and millions of tons of cargo moving through our airports each year. Supporting these essential goods movement while simultaneously managing games-related traffic will be a critical part of our planning efforts. Next slide, please. Or sorry. Okay. As you can see, the 2028 games will not only occur in the city of Los Angeles, there will be over 40 venues slated for competition spread across the region, including Trestles Beach located in unincorporated San Diego County adjacent to San Clemente. Given the regional nature of the games, coordination with local jurisdictions and other partners is essential and foundational to this work, as has been stated. Next slide, please. The Games will be an exciting event for our region where it will be the first time that Los Angeles hosts the Paralympic Games. The Paralympic Games will be held at about 15 venues across 4 cities in the region. Next slide. Within the SANDAG region, Trestles Beach, located in unincorporated San Diego County, will host the surfing competitions currently planned for 4 days during the first week of the games. This site is connected to San Clemente via regional rail and local bus services, and the games may have implications for nearby goods movement facilities with respect to I-15 corridor. This is a direct example of the possibilities to maximize the location of this event with opportunities for visitors such as athletes and their families, media, officials, and spectators, among others. There will be opportunities to both directly serve the event needs during the time of operations, as well as to cater more broadly to the increase in visitor demand to access the San Diego International Border region. As an example, visitors may wish to extend their stay beyond the event to experience all that San Diego has to offer. This is also an opportunity for those staying in other areas throughout Southern California, focused on other events, who may decide to come to San Diego and the International Border region as a part of their overall experience. Next slide. Planning for games-related mobility is led by the Games Mobility Executives, or GME, a cross-agency team that includes numerous agencies such as SCAG, Caltrans, LA Metro, Los Angeles Department of Transportation, the City Mayor's Office, and LA 28. The GME oversees mobility planning efforts to help deliver a transit-first games, focusing on spectator and background travel, including how residents, commuters, businesses will be impacted by the games. The GME is organized into several core work streams or subcommittees shown on the slide. SCAG plays a central role by coordinating regional strategies, particularly around transportation demand management for both passenger and freight. Additionally, SCAG coordinates across other work streams as there are important variables that relate to TDM. For example, the Games Route Network and Games Enhanced Transit Service are critical inputs to inform TDM planning strategies. Also, as will be mentioned later in the presentation, stakeholder engagement goes well beyond the GME, as each subcommittee is responsible to coordinate efforts accordingly across the region. Next slide. SCAG plays a unique role in preparing the region for the games. We are the designated lead for TDM, as mentioned, within the GME, and our responsibility is to ensure that the region is coordinated, prepared, and aligned. The foundation of our work was laid last year with the development of the Games Mobility Program, which is organized around 4 key objectives focusing on legacy, innovation, collaboration, and partnership, and strengthening our communities. A core component of this is to accelerate innovation through pilots and demonstrations. This is a large part of the TDM strategy development to demonstrate operational mobility changes in preparation for the games. Additionally, showcasing communities to support local placemaking and community development opportunities is important and transferable across all Southern California to generate an exciting and successful games experience for visitors and spectators, as noted in the previous slide for the Trestles Beach Zone. Next slide. As part of the regional TDM strategy, key elements include convening partners and facilitating regional coordination by bringing together all relevant stakeholders, including non-venue cities, through quarterly forums, which we'll talk about in the next slide, and through targeted meetings. Today's presentation with SANDAG's Borders Committee as a direct example of this. Developing a TDM implementation plan and implementation roadmap with foundational documents that will outline key goals and objectives, establish prioritized strategies, and map out an implementation timeline. Providing technical assistance and resources to partners, such as a TDM toolbox with strategies tailored to mega events to support local TDM implementation. Identifying and supporting pilot and permanent projects and establishing a process for ongoing monitoring, evaluation, and refinement. And lastly, supporting development and implementation of a coordinated communication strategy to ensure consistent, clear, audience-specific messaging throughout the region. Communications will be a critical element for Southern California to host a successful games. There will need to be a bridge that connects the region to the needs of the games venue locations and opportunities for visitors to experience all that Southern California has to offer. We will want to work in partnership, as stated earlier, with all the counties in the region, including with SANDAG, to develop these strategies that could be tailored to the specific needs of each area. Together, these components create a structured and actionable framework to prepare for the region for the games and beyond. Next slide. To further support regional collaboration and outreach, SCAG has kicked off 2 regional TDM forums. One focused on passenger TDM, the other focused on freight. These quarterly forums are meant to promote coordination across agencies, allowing us to share resources and best practices and ensure alignment on goals in our work. Participation includes the GME subcommittee members, as stated earlier, venue and venue adjacent cities, transit providers, airports, universities, and freight industry organizations, among others. Our last freight forum for both passenger and freight TDM were held in November of this past year, and the next meetings are tentatively scheduled for March and early April. Next slide. In addition to the forums, last summer, we initiated outreach to key stakeholders who will be impacted by the games and who will need to collaborate with to develop the coordinated TDM plan. Stakeholders have included many of the same entities as I just mentioned, among others, to allow for flexibility and numerous needs and interests to participate throughout the process. In total, we've met with over 60 stakeholders in one-on-one meetings alone. This work can also be considered here in the SANDAG region to help frame a similar approach for the unique region's needs, and ultimately will be important as part of the development of a broader communication strategy. Next slide. In addition to regional TDM forums and one-on-one meetings, we engage with stakeholders in other areas. This includes our regional council and transportation committee, as well as other regional planning working groups. We've also participated in stakeholder working groups such as the COGS Games meetings and Inland Empire Games working group, titled here as the I-15 Economic Development Collaborative. We recognize that similar like to I-5, I-15 is a primary corridor connecting our regions, and I-15 Economic Development Collaborative is a coalition of Inland Empire cities coordinating on games-related initiatives. These cities and agencies include Corona, Eastvale, Fontana, Drupa Valley, Norco, Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga, and the Ontario International Airport. The collaborative is focused on advancing initiatives such as fan zones, streamlining permitting, cultural art installations, and collaborative marketing. Next slide, please. So we know TDM strategies will be critical, and these strategies are aimed at reducing the demand for roadway travel and minimizing congestion caused by the games. The passenger TDM plan particularly will aim to reduce the demand in single occupancy vehicles by promoting efficient transportation options such as biking, walking, transit, carpooling, or van pooling. These approaches will likely include wayfinding, marketing, and promotional materials, incentives, flexible modular mobility projects like pop-up mobility hubs, and services like shuttles. Next slide, please. Freight transportation demand management aims to enhance operational efficiency on the logistics operations and on last mile delivery to and around venue locations. Possible strategies include off-peak deliveries, rerouting freight around event venues, setting up pickup locations to parcel deliveries, and consolidating customer orders based on product type or location, among others. As we all know, the supply chain transcends both SCAG and SANDAG, so much of this work can be leveraged and considered across our regions, as well as with respect to implications from the games for both international and domestic freight flows. SCAG, as a part of both of these strategies for passenger and freight, SCAG will consider funding mechanisms based on incentives, looking to demonstrate these strategies as they are developed. And again, these are areas that can be leveraged and coordinated through SANDAG with their unique programs and projects. Next slide, please. We have developed and will continue to develop region-wide games TDM resources. This has included an updated TDM toolbox tailored to mega events. This will result from our TDM games strategies and implementation plan, building upon our initial foundational work. A games TDM resource guide has been developed that serves as an initial planning tool for local jurisdictions. This guide provides context on the 2028 games and describes the roles of SCAG in the GME, which we've kind of highlighted for you earlier. It assists local jurisdictions in identifying existing resources and pinpointing resource gaps. It highlights TDM categories with potential strategies and case studies to help partners tailor efforts to large-scale events, and compiles existing and planned resources that can be leveraged to enhance and support ongoing TDM initiatives. Toolkits and outreach to businesses most impacted by the games is ongoing, as we've discussed in the previous slides, and communications resources tailored to different audiences to promote uniform messaging leading up to and during the games, as also stated earlier, will be forthcoming and is a critical element that will be working in partnership with many stakeholders throughout the region. Next slide. So I think this is one of the, I mean, everything is important here for everyone to learn about, but this is I think a great slide to use for leveraging, especially for thinking about kicking off, you know, the ideas and opportunities for this area. So one way jurisdictions and localities throughout Southern California can participate in the games is through community activations, opportunities for residents and visitors to experience and celebrate the games locally while helping reduce regional travel demand. So as mentioned earlier, the Games TDM Resource Guide provides details on all of these activation opportunities, and we encourage that to be utilized as a guide for those who are interested in getting a lot more into the details. And as part of this, we recognize that not everyone will be able to attend events in person, so accessible local programming can connect our residents and visitors to the games, supporting tourism and function as a TDM strategy by encouraging more localized travel. So examples include fan fests, which are events that offer live screenings, cultural programming, and sports activities. Open streets events, which promote active transportation and can be paired with fan zones for celebrations. Hospitality houses and training sites hosted by National Olympic and Paralympic committees, serving as cultural hubs with entertainment, live screenings, and opportunities to engage international guests. Volunteer programs, I think we're looking at 65,000 volunteers that will likely be required just as a part of the Olympics coming to the region. Can also support operations and activate local communities. And then the Cultural Olympiad, providing a year-long series of arts and cultural events leading up to and during the games. So as cities begin planning local programming, they can look for opportunities to repurpose existing events such as summer concert series, outdoor movie nights, other recurring community activities by adapting them into these game-type celebrations. So clearly, San Diego has a wealth of public community spaces, event-related activities that can benefit from these opportunities, both during the games and for future events. Specifically, San Diego has a history of hosting Olympic training through the Chula Vista Athlete Training Center. So the region, can begin thinking about how it can develop Fan Fest, open streets, support hospitality brand houses needs and volunteer programs, while also thinking about the legacy future of how that could be leveraged further. One other note is LA 28 will share more information this year on how to host Games Fan Fest, and will provide information on the Cultural Olympiad. And SCAG will also support these community activations through our Community Hubs program. I'll touch on in one of the next slides coming here. Next slide. So obviously with the emphasis on transit and other mobility options, this requires improved active transportation mobility needs. So SCAG will be supporting 12 quick build projects across the region. These projects will begin mid-2026 with construction following in 2027. Projects will help improve connectivity by creating safer streets for people walking and biking. Next slide. And SCAG will also be supporting community hubs to activate public spaces and support community-centered placemaking during the games and beyond. We're currently in the final steps of securing consultant support to develop an activation toolkit. The toolkit will provide local guidance and planning resources to support the deployment of community hubs. We'll also identify and implement pilot projects. Community hubs not only support broader TDM goals, but will support long-term benefits and legacy of the games in local communities. This is also an opportunity and example of how SANDAG could leverage this focus towards their own community hub or other programs. Next slide. So in terms of timeline, here's how we expect the work to unfold. By next summer, we expect we'll be done with our planning work and on to our supporting pilot projects. In 2026 and 2027, we'll develop a community hubs toolkit and begin quick build construction. We'll also look to large sporting events in the region, such as the World Cup and the Super Bowl coming in 2027, to test and evaluate strategies before the games. In 2027 and 2028, we'll continue to support pilot projects and scale those that prove to be the most impactful, which includes supporting community hubs throughout the region. And throughout the planning process, we'll focus on how we can support and sustain efforts that serve as a legacy beyond the games. The registration period for tickets is open and running January 14th through March 18th. Time slot notifications are March 31st through April 7th. So we encourage everyone to consider their opportunity to experience the games directly. And in conclusion, this is a tremendous amount of work to be done leading up to the games. It's only going to continue to increase. We're committed to making the games as exciting and successful as they can be, and we recognize that strengthening Southern California partnerships across regional partners and stakeholders will be critical to achieve this success. So that's our presentation, and thank you for the time.
Thank you so much. And I want to encourage, before we go on to Lucas Coleman, the board members to jump in and have dialogues and conversations and ask questions, so we don't leave it until the very end. And I'm going to ask a question before we move forward. How is the coordination going in the Los Angeles corridor for ongoing construction projects along the line? I guess that's a question for you, Jennifer. Just because we're talking about traffic and we're talking about what's coming forward. So maybe you can give us a little update.
Yeah, so we haven't drilled down specifically on the Los Angeles corridor related to the games, if you will. Was that your question, or just overall coordination of?
Overall coordination, yes.
Yeah, so we work closely with Caltrans and the neighborhood jurisdictions to push out information regarding any of the impacts related to the Los Angeles construction. Right now, I believe that they're doing some soil samples. And so there's been an extensive outreach campaign related to the soil samples. And otherwise, I'm not aware of what else.
I can add a little bit. You know, as the games approach, we'll have a better idea of all what's going on in San Diego. Let it be from a training perspective, or an actual activity, or game or sports or whatever. I think we're going to have our capital team will have to be coordinating, the multiple projects that we have here in San Diego, as well as OCTA with their bluff stabilization project, our stabilization project of our bluffs. By the time the games occur, we probably are also going to be having the double track and platform project in Del Mar. As well as, like Jennifer mentioned, we are ongoing having technical studies for the Lausanne realignment. So I think our capital team will take a deep dive once we have a better idea of days, times, schedules, all that, to coordinate it so we don't have like an absolute closure window in the middle of the games, right? And that would be disastrous. So trying to do that, and I think the same will occur with our different transit authorities, both North County Transit and MTS, regarding the use of the line.
Yeah, and if I could add, we have been coordinating with NCTD and the Lausanne group. In fact, we've had a number of meetings. And one of the things, especially at Trestles, is the Lausanne, the coaster and Amtrak getting up to San Clemente is going to be really pivotal to getting to that surf event there at Trestles. The only way you can get there will be via San Clemente. So we see the Lausanne corridor playing a really significant role, not just for that event, but then getting everybody up through to LA proper to get to some of the other event locations.
Something that we need to be thinking ahead. It's using examples, and the chamber and EDC can probably help us on this. When a Comic-Con occurs, we have noticed that there's a large demand of hotel rooms in Orange County and LA, and the people coming to Comic-Con are actually using the coaster very frequently, and you could see at the end of the day of those when the Comic-Con is happening, at the end of the day you could see the coaster really packed, Santa Fe Station really packed. So those are kind of phenomenons that are going to also be we're going to be tracking. It's not just the activity in the games, but lodging. And like it was said, the support activities like training facilities and different things like that. So it has multiple layers.
I appreciate that answer. And I'm going to ask really, you touched on it, Scott, briefly with Chula Vista. We do have the Olympic Training Center that we actually took over from the Olympic Committee. But what requirements can we maybe share with other cities within the SANDAG region of how we can participate, how we can qualify as team practice or contribute to the overall success of these Olympics that are coming to us?
Yeah, thank you. I think we tried to get at earlier in the presentation, we have the resource guide that was created, and that was specifically, that's a tool that we see that local jurisdictions can rely upon. So we can share that resource with everyone here. And I think it really tries to get a lot more into the details of like, how do you develop a fan fest? How do you think about housing? How do you think about training? All those different facilities, all those different opportunities. And it tries to reference from the Paris Games or from different places of what's been done in the past to give collateral and material that could be considered for those areas. So I think that we've tried to put that together as a core resource specifically to share. And that can be utilized across, any city that's in Southern California. So yeah, and then obviously LA 28, they're still working on some of the developments for Fan Fest or some of these other activations that were mentioned there. So there's going to be more information to come, and that's why we view, partnering with SANDAG being a key element to continue to keep that communication and updated information current.
We like to see ourselves as a mega region that extends all the way to Los Angeles. So I appreciate that very much. And I see, Colleen, you have a question?
I sure do. So I want to know, have you even thought about the impact I'm Riverside County, and I'm down for my county. the impaction of, a lot of people go to Palm Springs. I see that they're one of your stakeholders, but have you even thought about that in the in between cities, which it would impact, like Banning, Beaumont, Calamasa, Whitewater, Cabazon? How are you, what's the word I want to use? As far as, if people, when they come out here to the Olympics and they want to go to Palm Springs, because Palm Springs is like a lot of, people are starting to go to the desert areas, not just Palm Springs. So what are you doing about the paction coming that way?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's in some ways a little bit similar with the other answer. I think that when we think of the Olympics and just the intensity of what it's going to generate, we look at, obviously there's kind of direct implication where the events are being held. But then when we think of Southern California more broadly, it, like someone who's flying here who maybe they haven't been here before, or they have once, or they're not very familiar, they need to be oriented to, they can come to a game, but then at the same time, they can experience all that Southern California has to offer, you know, the international border connection, all the things that are great about our region collectively. So that's why when we think of communication strategy, there's the logistics related to the game, but then there's also, where are you going to stay? What are you going to do? How long are you going to be there? What are the opportunities that you can experience? So we see those areas out toward the desert as being a direct part of that, right? So that communication can help people understand, well, if I'm going to be here for a week or a couple weeks or whatever it is, that I can stay in this location because I want to be here to watch these events that I'm going to see. But I could also maybe go further east and stay somewhere once I'm done watching my games, and then I can enjoy and experience, you know, Palm Springs, or go check out something in, go to Disneyland, or, you know, go to the Legoland or whatever. There's all kinds of things all across the region, and we want to make sure that the experiences of the games can be connected, right, to all these opportunities. So I view that area to be, everything is consistent, right? When it comes to marketing that, communicating that, making sure the information is clear and visitors are aware of all these opportunities.
Okay. Councilmember Steve Coble. I'm sorry,
I just
Colleen.
have one. Yeah, I just
Go
have
ahead.
one more question. Is this in place yet? Have you guys put this in place? About that, thinking about that part of Riverside County?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question?
Colleen, can you repeat the question?
Have you made any implementations that has been placed, put in place about, in case this does impact Riverside County, how, you know, because, you know, I fight for the rail, for us to have the railroad, Metrolink coming through there. We don't have that. So I'm just trying to see if you have anything in place for Riverside County, if people want to come into this area.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the point of our passenger and freight TDM, we're doing planning, strategy, development, leading to pilot projects. So through that process, we are trying to holistically understand the implication, right? So to that point, maybe accommodations are getting really expensive, and someone says, I want to go further east. Oh, I can stay in Riverside. There's a Metrolink station. I can take that right in to get to the venue I need to get to if I transfer here, et cetera. So yeah, we're definitely thinking Southern California as a region. How do we maximize all the areas that we have for the games, and then also for the experiences that people can have just being in our region, right? So we want to make sure that we balance that. And yeah, Riverside is definitely a part of that process.
Councilmember Steve Coble.
Thank you, Chair. I've got to believe the federal government is involved from a security point of view. But when you're talking about the movement of goods, rail, things like that, I didn't see the federal government listed on slide 10 as one of the agencies who would be involved. Are they involved?
Yeah, yes, they are. The United States Secret Service is involved, and I mean, one of their core roles that we're working on with them is to develop, you know, we did have on the slide, the games route network. So just think of that, like here's all our core freeway corridors, and then, you know, that map that showed all the venue locations. You need to access, right? You need to get access to get in and around. So the Secret Service is working on the perimeter of all those games venue locations. So there is going to be a perimeter and there are going to be access points, and that is being worked on, and we expect that to be completed soon. And that is a key fundamental input into our TDM analysis to start thinking about what are the restrictions.
Sounds good. Each military installation around here has a community planning and liaison officer, CPLO. Are they involved with you at all to say, hey, here's the potential impact on our installation at this location? If freight trains slow through here, this will impact our ability to get on and off base, things like that?
I'm not, off the top of my head, I'm not certain if we've had discussions with those entities, but that's a point. I can definitely take that back and confirm, and if not, that's an area we potentially need to add a stakeholder to the discussion. We can, for sure.
Anna Shepard here in San Diego is kind of the regional CPLO, and I think the SANDAG staff could get you Anna's information. She is in charge of each installation CPLO, so that would be the right person to start talking with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to turn it over to Barbara del Castillo from the Mexican Consulate.
Thank you. I just want to briefly say that coming from Boston, which is hosting six FIFA matches this year, I can only say they would have benefited very much from the very long preparedness process that you're carrying on here. With regards to LA 28, and a bit of a follow-up, is also there being some consideration about border crossings? I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of Mexican community or community coming from the southern part of the border to attend. Is that being considered in some of your committees?
Yes, in fact, at our last TDM group meeting, that was a conversation that was had. And again, because there's not a lot of automobile access to or any automobile access to the games, we're going to be, you know, really relying on our transit to get people up through San Diego and into LA County. And so that was something that we gave information back to the TDM forum to reach out to those military groups. And I did not mention that we've also been coordinating with the tribes as well on the LA Games. And so they have just joined the TDM forum as well to gain information about the games.
Much appreciated. If we don't have any more questions for this portion, Lucas, oh, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Eric Joyce.
Thank you. I just want to, I guess, reemphasize like the importance of the LOSAN reliability, because we actually hosted the Korean Olympic Committee. They came to check out some of our areas, and there's been interest in Oceanside specifically. Sorry, I represent Oceanside as well, the North Coastal. There are folks that don't want to stay in LA, but they want to be close enough that they can hop on the train, and their questions always go to reliability of getting north. And so, you know, I think the next couple of years of making sure the reliability is proven to folks before they're coming in is really important. The Oceanside Transit Center itself is going through a rebuild. Do we know, have we talked with NCTD about timing of that to make sure that it's not under construction when we have an extra, you know, double capacity of people moving through that transit center?
Yes, we talked actually at length about that at our San Clemente meeting on trestles. And I believe we have North County representative here, but they are aware that there may be some time conflicts with the development of Oceanside and the games. So they are working on what that looks like. And we can invite NCTD back if you'd like more information.
I think the NCTD board would be very interested in making sure that we're doing all that we can to streamline for these games, because obviously we're going to be putting on eyes on the agency itself from all over the world. So we want to make sure we're representing and doing our best to not be the bad headline of LA 28. Okay, thank you.
Lucas Coleman, San Diego Regional, EDC.
Thank you, Chair Chavez, and members of the community, members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to share some closing remarks here about this impressive string of events that we have coming down to Southern California, whether it's the Olympics, the FIFA World Cup, NASCAR coming to Coronado, or even the Invictus Games, which San Diego is a final three city location for to close out the decade. In my role, I lead the international economic development efforts of the San Diego Regional EDC as director of the World Trade Center. And our three priorities are to support exports out of the San Diego region, to maximize foreign investment opportunities into San Diego, and third, to really enhance the global brand and identity of the region. And as it relates to that final pillar of work, we often have an opportunity to go abroad to cities that are important for our region from a trade and investment perspective. And just last fall, we went to France, which is one of the top source destinations for foreign investment into San Diego and has a lot of complementary industries. But of course, Paris also was the most recent host of the Summer Olympic Games. And so we had an opportunity to meet with a lot of the Olympic organizers, both in Paris as well as Marseille, which is a city a few hours south by train and has a lot of parallels to what we're trying to do here in our region. And so when we went down to Marseille, we met with some of the Olympic organizers and city officials that were responsible for turning their marina into a nautical stadium and really have it be the beating heart for community engagement for the people that live there as they watched some of the sailing events and participated in a fan zone. I know there's been a little bit of talk about having some sort of a fan zone here, not just in LA, but as well in San Diego. And I think that there are a lot of opportunities to tie that into some of the redevelopment that we have taking place in the seaport and other major developments that we'd like to see move forward in the coming years. I think there are also unique ways that we can tie in San Diego innovation. And whether that's with Qualcomm connecting the world, leaning into our Navy heritage. And when we're talking about seaport development, it's not just retail, of course, but it's also from a foreign investment and business perspective, filling some of that office and retail space and making this a city and a region that people around the world, when they have their attention on it, they want to put their business there as well. Another thing we were able to do during our trade mission was to go to Paris and talk about how they were able to push through some major developments like the Adidas Center, which was finished in just a few years, really so that it could be ready in time for the Olympic Games. This required a lot of coordination between the public sector and the private sector, ensuring that after the Olympics ended, that it could be a community asset to make sure that it tied into light rail and transit to the airport. And so through meeting some of those partners, we hope to be able to support the efforts of SCAG and SANDAG and others here to try and make sure that we're gleaning all the best practices that we can. So in conclusion, I think we want to really drive FDI opportunities from the standpoint of the EDC. We want to leverage all the attention that is on Southern California to showcase all of what Cali Baja has as a binational mega region and really showcase San Diego innovation, whether that be in the life sciences or technology or defense and aerospace. And we want to be there to support any way that we can. I know we've offered opportunities for tourism authority and city officials to present at some of our EDC board meetings. I know that there's some talk about having San Diego be a starting location perhaps for the torch to go around the United States and end up in Los Angeles. And so anywhere we can to support those efforts, happy to do that. And thank you again. Turning my time back to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for highlighting the mega region that we're always so happy to talk about. Are there any more border member comments? Well,
Yeah,
Daniela
sorry,
Rodriguez,
I
San Diego
have a lot of
Regional.
notes, but just wanted to really reiterate that Lucas and I have seen increasing interest in the region of like a group that can drive the momentum here in San Diego and that can really start, like from my notes on SCAG's like best practices, like let's start mapping those regional partners. Let's start looking at the different roles that each of us can play. What would be our communication strategy? What would be what are we promoting? Is it the Amtrak? Is like, what would be our, like 1, 2, 3 things that we are telling visitors that are not going to, international visitors are not going to fly to LA for 2 or 3 days. Right? So they're planning already and we want them to consider San Diego. How can we be visitor friendly? Like if they Google San Diego Olympics, there should be a page somewhere or a one pager of like, this is how you get from LA to San Diego to Tijuana. This is the top 3 things that we can tell you as a region. These are some of the things that you should know in visiting the region. Like, are we strategizing some of these partners like that already mobilizing, the shuttles from LAX to San Diego, like I'm thinking CBX and others like Mexico. Are we, leveraging other stakeholders for Fan Fest or cultural events? What are they? Can we at least put a month on it so they know in advance, like when to visit San Diego as they plan their visit? And just thinking again to SANDAG and looking at SANDAG and this committee to be that sort of like one-stop shop of like bringing us in as partners and taking from SCAG's best practices, like how can we get started now?
This is a great point of discussion. We are the most transited border of the world, with 2.2 million border crossers using the blue line every single month. We need to calculate that we are a very, very interconnected region. That I am sure we're going to have a lot of tourism coming from Mexico as well. So talking to MTS, getting the state government involved and seeing how we can partner to make this a wholesome experience, a mega regional experience, I think it's the key that we take from this. So any other comments? No questions? We're good? Okay. Well, I want to thank you all.
I'm sorry, Chair, we do need public comment on this item.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Cesar Javier. Followed by Andrea Ebbing online.
Mi casa, su casa. It's in our constitution. And as a host, if we may say that, respect. Whatever you see, whatever facilities we have here, dirty water, dirty air, bear with us. What else? Mi casa, su casa. That's our thinking. This is all about managing survival in a democracy. His history declared, Hitler tried to influence you in ally to destroy America. Oh, these are all learning. We are not competing and we are not pointing fingers. This is reality that we are telling you, learning and teaching with you. Please, we respect each other. And don't worry, SANDAG. We did our best. Mobility, and we even discuss affordability housing. We even discuss about our environment. Just to let you know, to me, we are ready. Even the unknown, unintended consequence falling on the national security as emphasized by the first thinker. We respect you. Mi casa, su casa. You're welcome even in our community. Okay? God bless us. And thank you, SANDAG. We are learning fast and we are helping you. We are ready as far as mobility and circulation.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Andrea Ebbing online, followed by Blair Beekman. Please keep your comments directed to item 4.1.
Hi, this is Andrea Ebbing. Lucas Coleman all day long. Yes, 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 to everything you said. And the gal next to him, I apologize, I didn't catch your name, but yes, correct. Everything he was talking about was a lot of the things I wanted to talk about as well. The Seaport Village redevelopment. Jeffrey Essico of Protea Holdings is actually the developer that the port assigned to partner on that. He's an amazing, dynamic individual who's really contributed so much to San Diego. And he is the founder of the Challenged Athletes Foundation. And he's also doing that project. So I think there's a lot of cross promotional opportunities. And I'm certainly aware of what I'm talking about. I was the marketing director for W Hotels. Starwood Hotels tapped me to do a qualitative, quantitative analysis for an approved $26 million investment into the Columbia District. I'm a small business owner in San Diego, played instrumental role in the opening of Fit Athletic, Royal Maui Jewelers, Fashion Valley Mall, Tower 23 Hotels, fashion director for 944 Magazine. This is definitely my jam. I love this stuff. I think we can come up with a passport situation. Community planning groups can raise funds from local small business owners to be a part of it. And then the revenues generated can be redistributed back to those planning groups and the city and the county and the business owners. I think that we can do something spectacular with Seaport Village. We have somebody in Parks and Rec, we have to find out from Andy Field, but he had participated in the wheelchair basketball, but I think he's a good person to tap into for this. The innovations and engineering companies based in San Diego, Boston Scientific, we can do gamifications, TED-like events where they come up with prosthetics, new wheelchair designs, new equipment, new gaming type of things for challenged athletes. But there's a huge opportunity here. So I'm very excited about it. I'd love to participate if there's a way for locals to do so. Thank you.
Next is Blair Beekman, followed by phone number 3731.
Hi, Blair Beekman. I should have my glasses available because I need to kind of see what I'm doing here. Here we go. Yeah, hi. Thank you. Thank you for this item. Very sorry that when lectures start, sometimes it gets really involved and people want to talk to each other and hear each other. It's really important to always have, I think, public comment first, however, for the most part, because it helps add an additional dimension of how to ask your questions of presentations. So just a reminder, I mean, the lecture process and dialogue is a way to work, but overall, the public having input first can help offer better questions overall. With that said, I simply mostly wanted to repeat what the person from Riverside was asking questions about. What will be the train issues, both passenger trains and freight trains? That means that there'll be more freight trains coming through. I understood it as more freight trains coming through Riverside into the San Diego area. I guess, is that going to be happening? If that is actually the case, and what else? Yeah, I just wanted clarification on that, if possible, if that is actual. And then what else did I have questions about? I'm not fully sure at this time. But I guess that overall, good luck in this event, and that it's a safe event, and that I think we should it's better to call things violent extremism as opposed to terrorism. It's easier to say terrorism, but violent extremism is a bit more polite after the events of 9/11 and who the real terrorists were on that day, if we all know by now.
Thank you, Blair. Your time has expired. And our last public comment is phone number ending in 3731.
Hey there, it is Truth. Trying to enjoy my day, but I decided you guys are still talking about the same item. I'm going to comment about it. Okay, Trestles Beach from San Clemente from Santa Fe. I'm wondering, like, how is that going to work exactly? The trip time on that would probably be what, 4 hours, 5 hours? That's for transit. Like, I don't think that's realistic. I mean, maybe you got a better solution. Maybe you should be investing in ferries and planes and stuff, something faster. Maybe cars. Maybe cars is the most efficient and cost-effective method. What I hear really is just moving goods junk for the Olympics, likely not people, as referenced in the Transnet tax, which is how this agency mostly operates. And you talk about relying on transit. I don't see that because they're not going to take transit in. They're going to be taking private and commercial jets. And that's very green. I know that meets the agenda well. And really, a lot of this that's going on in LA, it's but an excuse to implement roundabouts everybody hates, bike lanes with barriers to crash into, and curb extensions with extremist paintings on them that do nothing for real safety, like a stoplight at an intersection does. And for those of you that don't walk, because you actually do drive everywhere, you should try walking and you'll see what I mean. So what I hear is just San Diego and everybody at the round table there is hoping to get a piece of the corrupt satanic action. And I say satanic specifically because if you saw Paris, France last year, it was complete garbage. That's why nobody watched it. So I would hope LA could be better than that, but that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing money, 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 money. Because if the goal is lasting legacy in our region, what about the Palisades for LA Olympics 2028? Talk about a bad headline, because everybody knows about Smart LA 28 as part of this Olympics agenda, how everything just works out so perfectly on the timing. Nobody's fooled, and nobody's fooled about the money obsession either. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment on this item, Chair.
Well, thank you again, and thank you, Scott, for coming down all the way from Los Angeles. We also really appreciate our local partners, Kenya Samaripa, Lucas Coleman, and as well as Jennifer Williamson from SANDAG. Global events taking place in the greater Los Angeles area will attract attention from around the world, and they will certainly have impacts beyond its borders, including our San Diego International Border Region, as we mentioned. As you noted throughout the presentation, there is valuable knowledge and experience that we can build on, especially as we prepare to host national events ourselves. For example, upcoming NASCAR event that will be held in Coronado. I understand Mission Viejo as well has excellent aquatic facilities and already has contacted, and some national teams are now using the city as a training base. So moving forward, let's go to item number 4.3, if I'm not mistaken. And I will now introduce our next presenters, Naomi Young and Stacy Cooper from SANDAG. Naomi and Stacy will present an overview of SANDAG's regional housing needs and activities with an interesting perspective showing where people live and where people work. Chairman Curtis Lachusa from the Mesa Grande Band of the Diegueño Mission Indians is also joining us virtually. There's also a report presented for discussion. Naomi and Stacy, welcome, and the floor is yours. Do we have Chairman Lachusa joining us virtually?
Are you asking for?
Okay. Okay. Because I didn't see her on the screen.
Yes, there he is.
Perfect. The floor is yours.
Great. Well, good afternoon. My name is Naomi Young. I'm a principal economist here at SANDAG and appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about how we're connecting housing and transportation in the region to set up, and why SANDAG has a role in housing. So as part of our regional plan, SANDAG forecasts population, housing, and jobs. These forecasts inform how we plan for transportation infrastructure. Typically, we think that people want to live and work in the same area. The idea is that that leads to shorter commutes, which gives us a better quality of life. It also helps give us back precious time and reduces the drain on household finances. However, the decision around where we live and work is complex and deeply personal. Where we live reflects affordability and balancing the needs of everyone in a household. And where we work reflects job opportunity, pay, and the quality of the job. And what we're seeing is that people are increasingly mobile and having shorter tenures in their jobs. So to understand how job opportunity and housing are linked, we use SANDAG's employment centers to dig in and better understand what those connections are. what we found is that most people in the region do not live close to where they work. So next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I have the clicker. Great. Okay. This slide compares two metrics across jurisdictions in the county. The blue bar is the percentage of jobs in the jurisdiction that's filled by residents. You can see that it varies. Setting aside the city and the city of San Diego and the unincorporated areas, the share of jobs filled by residents ranges from as little as 3.5% in Del Mar to as high as 30% in Chula Vista and Oceanside. Put another way, the jobs in each jurisdiction relies on drawing workers from all over the region. And it raises the question, does housing availability contribute to a higher share of residents working locally? For this, we looked at the ratio of jobs to housing, which is shown in the pink bars. And if the ratio is closer to 1, what that means is that the number of units, housing units, and the number of jobs are really closely correlated. And the smaller the ratio, the more available housing is for workers. The larger the ratio, the jurisdiction is then really a more job-intensive place, meaning it has more jobs and housing in the area. You can see in this chart that the ratio ranges from 3.8 to 0.8, and that the jurisdictions are ordered from the largest to the smallest in ratio. If the housing availability influences working in the same area, what you'd expect is that the blue bars follow a pattern where from top to bottom, the blue bars would be the shortest to longest. In other words, a higher share of jobs would be filled by residents where there's a closer ratio of housing to jobs. But when you look at this chart, what you can see is that there's no observable relationship between the order of the pink bars and the blue bars. So that's the first hint towards the fact that like where we live and where we work is guided by different questions. Yes.
I'm sorry, we were encouraged to ask questions.
Yeah,
throughout.
that's great. I love questions.
Have you tried to, because the relative size of each of these spaces is very different, right? If you're looking at Vista versus San Diego, the size of that area is very different. Has this been run through maybe like sub-regional areas? Maybe looking at if within certain areas they live closer and maybe just to give you a different set, because this might be slightly misleading given the relative distance between the spaces.
You just took away my transition to the next slide.
I'm sorry.
No, it's a really good point, but these are ratios and percentages. So what that means is that even if you have a jurisdiction that's larger in geographic area, what we're looking for is that it would still have the same relationship between jobs and housing. So if you have a large area with a smaller number of jobs and a smaller number of housing units, then you'd still have a ratio of 1. Right. So this is one of those ways to kind of take away some of that variation that you're talking about. But it's a really good question. And so what we did is we dug into SANDAG's SANDAG's employment centers. SANDAG's employment centers have different geographic boundaries. And what they're really doing is they're looking at the concentration of jobs in an area. And what we see from our employment centers is that job centers cross jurisdictional boundaries. So this is speaking to your point about, does it make sense to just look within a jurisdiction? The next thing to note is that when we look at our employment centers, we organize them around 4 tiers. So tier 1 is the largest employment centers. Tier 4s are the smallest employment centers. And in San Diego County, we only have 3 tier 1 employment centers. It's downtown San Diego, Kearny Mesa, and Sereno Valley. Then when we look at our mid-size employment centers, they're the tier 2s and the tier 3s. We have about 29 employment centers in that space. And you can see that those are distributed across the region. So in the North County, they're just south of the 78. When you go down towards the southern part, you can see that there's quite a few along the I-8 and then also along San Diego's harbor. Oops. And then when we look at these three employment centers, they account for nearly 20% of the jobs in the region. And then of note, all of the tribal employment centers and most of the employment centers that are along the US-Mexico border are tier 4s. So these tier 4 employment centers are quite varied. There's a lot of them in the county, but they're really focused towards providing jobs and services to the local community. So from an employment center perspective, we don't see the patterns that we would expect. Regardless of the size, residents that fill the jobs within that employment center still remains less than 18%. Among the tier 2 employment centers, El Cajon has the highest share of jobs, and the next at 18%. And then the next highest is National City with about 10% of its jobs filled by its residents. As you go down the chart, you can see that 7 of the employment centers have less than 2% of the jobs filled by residents. Tier 3 employment centers show a similar pattern. PB has the highest share at 10%, and over half of the Tier 3 employment centers have less than 2% of the jobs filled by residents. So this is really speaking to the fact that like the location where people live and where their jobs are is not tracking with the intensity of the job opportunities in the employment center, just like what we saw with the jurisdiction level analysis. Now, I also have tier 4s on this chart, and without looking at the data, what I really would have expected is that these smaller employment centers, with their focus on providing local community services, would have a higher share of their residents filling the jobs. And the 2 highest concentrations are 17% at Fallbrook and 10% at Ramona. But the vast majority of these smaller employment centers still have less than 5% of the jobs being filled by their residents. So again, even in these smaller employment centers, we're not seeing that intense concentration of people living and working. So the question becomes, how does housing fit into this context? And when we look at housing availability, what we're seeing is that typically housing availability we would think that it would track with the average distance of workers traveling. So the pink bars are the ratio of jobs to housing, like we had seen before. And again, the larger the ratio, the more jobs per housing unit. So the more job intensive than residential intensive these employment centers are. The green bars are the average miles traveled for workers. And notice that regardless of the housing availability, so regardless of the size of the pink bars, the distance traveled, which is indicated 10 to 12 miles. So again, what we're seeing is that regardless of the housing intensity or housing availability, people are still driving a certain amount of distance. And so that to me says that it reaffirms in some ways the possibility that where we choose to live and where we choose to work are driven by different factors, that again, coming back to that complex decision that people have to make. And you can see that the relationship between distance traveled and the ratio of jobs to housing is even more disparate among tier 3 employment centers. So this chart focuses on employment centers that are closest to the region's borders, both in the northern and southern side of the county, and it also includes the employment centers. And what you can see is it's also grouped the employment centers by the share of jobs filled by its residents. So when we look across that, then the bars are showing the average miles traveled to work. The pink bars are tier 2 employment centers and the blue bars are tier 4. So you're getting those mid-size and those very small employment centers. And what you can notice is that the average distance traveled still remains around 10 to 12 miles with one notable exception, and that's the employment centers, the tribal employment centers. So they are the one employment center where you do see that the distance people have to drive to access those jobs is significantly larger than other areas. Intuitive, but it's still, when we're looking at this data and we're seeing a lack of pattern, when you do see something jump out, you kind of like glob onto it because it's meaningful. So collectively, these data points highlight that our region's really integrated. Employment centers provide employment opportunity to residents all over the county. Regardless of the employment center size, you can see the reliance on residents filling the job is really quite small. So this is looking at tier 1s and tier 2s. So these are our largest employment centers in the region. And the pink closest to the left is showing the percentage of jobs that are filled by residents within that employment center. And you can see it's still quite small. The one exception is El Cajon, which we'd seen earlier. The piece that I think is more significant is that look at the size of the gray bars. These are where the workers are coming into those employment centers, and it's so disparate in such a small level that I can't even get it to show meaningfully in the chart. And so across all of these employment centers, you still see that nearly over half are being filled by people coming from all over the place at such a diffused way that I can't group it. This pattern holds for the employment centers near the US-Mexico border. So if you look, it's actually a little bit more of a bifurcated distribution where you can see that there are a slightly higher concentration of jobs being filled by residents within those employment centers. The highest is Chula Vista Sunbow with around 28%. But then you can also notice that the diffusion of where workers are coming into these employment centers is also greater, where the gray bars are now tracking at around 70%. So when I look at this type of data, I mean, the first thing that I see is a lack of pattern. The second thing I see is this speaks to me about integration, and it also underscores the importance of how we facilitate people moving around the region. So in conclusion, the data points to a couple of things. And the first is that workers don't live where they work. So this idea of building housing where the jobs are, we have to recognize the complexity of households and their decisions about that. The share of employment filled by residents within an employment center is really small, with over half having less than 2%. So put it another way, 98% of their workers are coming from outside of that local boundary. The jobs also show, the employment centers also show that we see these patterns regardless of the housing intensity. And that lastly, housing availability and jobs don't appear to track really strongly, whether we look at it at a jurisdiction level or at an employment center level. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Stacy, who can talk about why we're thinking about housing.
Can I just jump in with a quick question and comment?
Please.
I'm sorry, they're encouraging me to do this. So I only wish we could house everyone within the county, right? But we understand that we have people coming in every single day from Temecula, from Riverside. But when you have 100,000 cars coming over the border on a daily basis and 2.2 million of travelers using the Blue Line on a monthly basis, you got to understand that we're not able to house everyone in the county. So moving forward, I would suggest and would love to see that information be as well noted, because that's daytime population, that when we advocate for funds over here in Southern California, we would like to have that equation as part of our negotiation factor for funding. So that's my only kind of question, but also comment. And I know the CEO is going to mention a little bit on that. And I already saw him grabbing the mic.
No, I think also, and this is planting the seed for future meetings, let it be this committee or others. One single, I think where the team is trying to say also is one single policy avenue for housing is not the silver bullet of solution. Housing development requires to really be really open-minded. And yes, there is a room for higher density, but there's also a room for not impacting housing for vehicle miles travel, mitigation. And Stacy's the expert on this, and she can allude more to this. But definitely, I think that in order to promote housing, it's like all hands on deck and all policies on deck. And one single policy won't be the solution for the housing element. And it could be from deregulation, from allowing more housing to be developed in outskirts areas or areas that the county has, to really supporting infill and more density, but with some great planning where you're not just increasing density and not supporting the local governments to provide the services that they need to. It's such a complex subject, and I don't know, Stacy will take it over, but what's telling us is, and Naomi was trying to say, and she said it at the end, you know, it, even if you have the housing and the jobs nearby, it may not be that everybody working in that area is going to want to live there. It will be able to live there. And remember that households don't have only one just single person working, it may be several. So it is a very complex subject. And I think at the end of the day, that's kind of what the team is trying to take us to.
I appreciate all that information. Would you like to comment from Baja California, Secretary of Economic
If I may.
Development? You
Thanks,
want to add to
Caroline.
this?
Yes, please. I think it brings up a very good floor for discussion. It's more of a question. I don't know if it's due to the nature of the sources of the data or the scope, as regional scope as it was defined. But what about people who live in Tijuana and work in the county? As Caroline was saying, people who live outside of the county and from the US, but what about the border crossing community? Thank you.
So the answer to that is not a short one. And it's a couple of layers. So you're right in that in our employment center analysis, we are using data that tracks where people live and work that are in the United States. Having said that, when SANDAG does do its long-term regional plan and we forecast job growth, we do actually estimate the amount of workers coming into San Diego County from other parts of California as well as from Mexico. So they show up in our aggregate numbers, but they're meaningful to the community in terms of its vibrancy. And at the scale of 2.1 million jobs, it is a small portion. So that doesn't mean that at a local level, when we think about, for example, like the San Ysidro Mobility Hub, that we should ignore that factor. But at a broader county level of just aggregate movements, this is where we have to balance that out.
Vice Chair Eric Joyce.
It's almost like this research just gives you 100,000 questions. It's like they want to pull on so many strings, but I think what you highlighted, like people are not living where they work. So what does that mean for planning housing and transit, right? Because it makes a whole lot harder to plan for mass transit if there's not a pattern of investment that makes the most sense. So I don't want to make assumptions, but it does seem to have some undermining of the concentrated housing models that we're seeing proliferated, especially pushed from the Sacramento side of things. You don't have to comment on that, but it just seems like it kind of flies in the face of it. And then I guess my big question is, going back to your first slide, you don't have to change it, but is there a big difference between the type of job or the economic income, what people are receiving in income in relation to their distance traveled? And do we have that information, or do we have an idea about how that impacts the willingness of people to travel beyond their own jurisdiction?
We do have income information available as part of the employment center's analysis. I didn't take that into consideration in this. So this is like planting seeds. But I do want to comment that just because people are not choosing to live where they work doesn't necessarily conflict with the idea that we need densification or co-location of housing in intense areas. What it's really saying is that the decisions for where we choose to work and where we choose to live are different. And people may still want to live in more densely urban areas or in areas with more intense housing because of all the other amenities that it provides on the other side of their life outside of work. And so it still continues. I mean, and I think what this work is saying is that we need to really question if we know what those drivers are, or are we assuming that those drivers are there? So that's, I would say that's the point. And then the other aspect is I think it just underscores the importance of having an agile and realistic transportation network.
Thank you.
Do we have any? Go ahead. Laura Loves.
That on? Okay. I missed a little bit of your presentation. I'm sorry, but how do you take into account the unincorporated areas? Because I didn't see anything that looked like that was going on.
I was just going to ask that. That's a great question.
So we show the unincorporated areas at the very first slide that looks across the jurisdictions. Let me back up. And then you're correct. The rest of the presentation pivots to really looking at this from an employment center perspective. But you can see the unincorporated area and the city of San Diego do have some of the highest percentages of employees that work within their jurisdiction. I caution against putting a lot of stock in that percentage because those areas are so spread out across the county. But it's there. Sure.
Councilmember Steve Gold.
Thank you, Chair. Do you factor age and generation into this at all?
In this analysis, no, we did not. But I love that question and the consideration because what we do know is that the type of housing and the job mobility, like meaning the job tenure, does vary across generations and stages of life. And so as we start thinking about housing and we're planning for this, we should be really thinking about how the demographics of our population is changing over time. And if we're planning for where we are today as opposed to where we will be.
You're planning for where you are today versus where we will be. Can you expand on that?
So housing and transportation infrastructure isn't instant. We know that they have long runways. And so and this is one of the reasons why we update our regional plan every 4 years, is to be able to keep on track with what these trends are saying and to make sure that we can course correct quickly and appropriately. So if you looked at Series 14, so the previous regional plan, it would have said that our population is growing steadily year over year. Series 15, underpinning the Regional 2025 plan, is showing that population slows and then actually starts to turn down after 2040. When you have that type of upside down U shape, you can have 2 points in time with the same number of people, and their age profile and their services and their needs are going to be very different. And that's what I mean by, like, we have to start thinking about where are we headed, because we're not in a world where the future looks like more of the past.
I would agree. It's difficult for younger generations to own a home, and rentership is higher than what it may have been in the past. Part of it is lifestyle, so I can move where I want to work, things like that. But at some point, does the population drive housing? Does housing drive population? If Series 15 says we're going to peak at 3.4, just another 100,000 people, you could say, do we really need to press for that much more housing? On the other hand, you could say, if we press for more housing, we'll have more than 3.4 million people and require more transportation resources. How do you see those two different scenarios?
This is going to be a cop-out answer. It needs more. It needs more research. population trends are changing. We know, we see from, and I'm out of depth because this is really for our estimates and forecast team, but where you get more housing, you get more population growth and younger people. And so there is a question about how at a jurisdictional level, housing growth or availability and how you gear it towards the type of age demographic that you want in your communities can be a tool, a policy tool. That's not for our as the agency to do that, but it's one for us when we do our regional plans, we work closely with jurisdictions to make sure that we're incorporating that into what the future vision is.
I mean, we can go on and on. I still have a few more. I'm just going to let Stacy Cooper continue with the presentation.
All right, thanks. So both Mario and Naomi teed it up as, and you guys have as well, that this is a really complex issue. So why is SANDAG, who has no land use authority, talking about housing? Like, what's our actual role in housing? Because I think that's a big question everyone likes to ask. So we have several federal and state designations that determine what we do as an agency. And some of those give us a very limited yet specific responsibility when it comes to housing. So as you can see up on the slide, as everyone knows, we do the regional plan every 4 years. It also includes a sustainable community strategy, which is a coordinated transportation network and land use pattern. As a regional transportation commission, we distribute smart growth incentive program funds to local jurisdictions to incentivize growth in smart growth areas. As a council of governments, we're responsible for everybody's favorite thing, which is the regional housing needs allocation, or RHNA. And then in 2019, AB 101 expanded our role when it established the regional early action planning grants and gave MPOs around the state money to help local jurisdictions come into compliance with 6-cycle RHNA and new housing laws. So that's sort of our 4 sort of main things that have to do with housing, a lot of them being state mandates. So our housing acceleration program is what we launched with our REAP 1.0 funds. We got $6.8 million from the state. That was all planning money. We sub-allocated money to the local jurisdictions and did a lot of planning grants to help sort of SANDAG as an agency understand more of the housing realm around the state, and also what kind of studies could we do to help accelerate housing in our area. In 2022, they announced REAP 2.0, which gave us $40.5 million, and it also integrated the state's climate and housing goals together. Those of you from the SCAG region, SCAG got about $230 million for similar programming. So the REAP 2.0 objectives, and I know we've sort of talked a little bit about this as we've gone through this presentation, we're accelerating infill development that facilitates housing choice, supply, and affordability, affirmatively furthering fair housing, and reducing VMT. So big goals of the states. SANDAG, after a lot of education and outreach, came up with a program that we proposed to the state that had 4 main activities: local jurisdiction support, affordable housing programs, a transit agency partnership, and a tribal partnership. So some of the highlights from the programs that we've done so far we've awarded $14.2 million in grants to local jurisdictions, and that was for capital and planning grants. We also have a technical assistance program that helps our local jurisdictions come into compliance with state law and provides different policy resources for them. In collaboration with the San Diego Foundation, we awarded $14 million in grants and low interest loans to affordable housing developers around the region. We have a transit agency partnership with our 2 local transit agencies, and we're also doing some studies to look at transit-oriented development on other public lands. For those of you who are interested in learning more about how our region is progressing towards our housing goals, we have a housing policy and planning tool that shows our region's progress towards meeting our RHNA goals, and also shows different areas of development throughout the region. And then we have a tribal partnership, which I'll talk a little bit more in depth about. So SANDAG, in collaboration with the SCTCA, put together a tribal housing program to help the local tribes meet their housing needs. We had 8 tribes in our region who applied and were awarded funding. We awarded $4.4 million in funds to the tribes. The program is being administered through the SCTCA, obviously in close coordination with SANDAG, and the expenditure deadline for the tribes is June 2026. So you can see on the map, those are the tribes that had applied and where their projects are. And then here is just a list of those tribes that were awarded projects. So we have Iwapai, Hamul, La Jolla, Mesa Grande, Pala, Palma, Santa Isabel, and Rincon. And they're all working on the projects to complete them by the date of June of this year. And that completes our presentation. If anybody has any questions.
I just want to see if Chairman Lachusa wants to chime in.
Yes,
There you go.
can you hear me?
We can hear you
Oh.
perfectly.
Oh, okay. I'm Curtis Lachusa. I'm the chairman of the Mesa Grande tribe. Was awarded some of that money out of Southern California Tribal Chairmans and SANDAG here. First of all, I just want to say how grateful we are. I truly thank you from the bottom of my heart that you're helping us. Who is it that you're helping? Well, to be perfectly honest, with our history, Mesa Grande has been around for 12,000 years. Our culture and our history has gone that long. And just recently, we suffered enslavement under the Spanish Empire. After that, then we suffered brutality as subhumans under the Mexican government. There was a war between Mexico and the United States. The United States took over and had a policy of termination for the Native Americans. That lasted through, well, it lasts up to now. State of California had some genocidal policies in which my great-grandfather's head could be exchanged for $5. So Happy New Year 2026, where are we at? The United States didn't start helping fund us, Mesa Grande. We're a non-gaming tribe. We don't have a casino. We don't get any funding to speak of. We didn't get started funding until the late 1970s with a small, minuscule amount from the federal government. We got nothing from local or state help in any infrastructure. 2026, I have tribal members that have no water, that do not have electricity, has never been able to hook into a grid. They don't know what it's like to flip on a light switch. They raise their children in what they can do is get a generator from Home Depot and be able to have some lights at night. So we have 80% poverty. And I know that, yeah, there's no jobs here. We have to drive a long ways just to get groceries, sometimes up to 40 minutes an hour to the nearest city that we can go to a Vaughn's. This is in the middle of San Diego County here, 2026. I'm truly grateful that we are getting help now. Finally, we were able to get some help. We've been displaced. People moved off their homeland where their generations have grown up. They moved away because of opportunity. There's no opportunity. So to be able to bring them back, you ask what is important about housing? What is it that housing can do for people? And it's very apparent for us, very, very apparent. It's cultural preservation. It's community strength. It's a celebration of who they are. It wasn't up until, this 21st century, the early 21st century, we have this unity now that we're able to speak government to government. And we're truly grateful for that. That is the beginning of a new way. So we got this money, this housing money. We went in and we're making a housing master plan. It's the first comprehensive reservation-wide framework to address current, future housing needs for future community of 1,500 people. I represent over 1,000. We're looking to build 1,500 because people are having children. And we're trying to plan a little bit ahead for our population. This plan prioritizes our elders and the most vulnerable to get them water, to have them electricity, it's health, to have the ability to live well as everybody deserves. The near-term focus, this has allowed us to speak with other government agencies. Other government agencies have seen this and provided more funding. We expect the first phase of this plan, which was funded by SANDAG, to take effect where we give keys to tribal members for new homes in early 2028. I can't speak highly enough about the team that has gone in here and done these things and are helping our most vulnerable and plan for the future. So this opens up doors not only for housing, but also for broadband access. So that supports housing more, telehealth, education, remote work, economic development. All these things that are not available to us now will be available just in creating housing, putting in broadband, which I'm sure many enjoy and they don't give it a second thought, but we do not have that. Economic development, being able to remote work. I'm lucky to be on Zoom with you now, as many do now. It's essential to have the ability to communicate. Public works and roads and education, getting the kids being able to research and do their work and become the best that they can. So housing, how important is it? It's everything to us. Cultural preservation, keeping this history alive that's been around for the past 12,000 years, being able to celebrate it, and not just preservation, but also to celebrate. And these kids are coming up with so much. Our children have art, poetry, music. They're good at athletic achievements and engineering. They just need the opportunity to be able to contribute to the whole. You talk about unincorporated areas, we're surrounded by it. And these surrounding communities, our neighbors, our friends, we all go to, the kids all go to school together. They're our friends, right across that border. They deserve as much too. They suffer just as much too. So again, I can't say enough good things about the team. I can't thank you more for providing this for us. And I just hope to highlight the importance. And it goes across the board. All Californians, all San Diegans, they deserve the best that we can do for them when we're serving in the positions that we serve. So again, thank you so much. That's all I have to say right now.
Chairman Lechusa, thank you so much for being here today. I can't emphasize enough how important it is for you to participate in this borders meeting. I'm going to open it up for any comments from the board members. Chairman Raymond Welch.
Okay, good afternoon. Before I share on this topic, I want to take a moment to thank Chairwoman Chavez for the City of Chula Vista's proclamation last week, for the presentation. The proclamation marks the second Sunday in November as Kumeyaay Day. We thank you for acknowledging that we are still here and elevating our voices. I want to speak candidly today about the crisis that often goes unseen for those outside the borders. The severe housing shortage of tribal reservations. Far too many of our members in San Diego County and throughout California, the dream of living on ancestral land is delayed by lack of available homes. We're seeing levels of overcrowding and aging infrastructure that simply would not be tolerated elsewhere. There just isn't there aren't just statistics. There are families waiting for a front door of their own. Building on tribal land isn't as simple as pulling a permit. We face unique jurisdictional hurdles and massive infrastructure gaps. That is why partnership with SANDAG is so vital. I want to personally recognize the value of SANDAG's funding through programs like REAP 2.0. Before that, just the capital, it's the administrative support. That makes a difference. For a tribal government, the burden of reporting and grant management can be a barrier in itself. Having SANDAG provide a technical know-how to navigate these state requirements allows us to focus on what matters, getting shovels in the ground. Regarding efforts at Verona, our priority in 2026 is infrastructure and in the foundations of housing. After several years of regulatory hurdles, we are currently in a pre-bidding process of water infrastructure improvement project. You cannot build homes without clean, reliable water. We continue to work with SDG&E to address the high costs and logistical complexity of installing our infrastructure on our remote lands for current and future homes. At SDG&E is really difficult for us to get powered homes. A bunch of hurdles we have to get through just to get a single home powered. As we move forward, our goal is a self-determination. We need to continue regional support to ensure that tribal housing is not an afterthought, but a pillar for our regional planning. By working together, combining tribal sovereignty with SANDAG resources, we can ensure that all tribe members have a place to call home for future generations to come. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for recognizing I do it because we need to highlight that this is part of our history. This is who we are. This is in our DNA. And we need to move forward looking for solutions and how to always have representation and be loud and be clear that we're always working together. We're always working together to look for better future for this community as a whole, as a unit. So thank you for that, Chairman. And with that, I am gonna, if there's no comments from the board, I'm gonna take it to public comment. Michael, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we have one in person and two online. So it's Cesar Javier followed by Truth Online.
Thank you, Sandag. I wish that Mayor Gloria and the 11 elected officials of this show window, greatest populated political unit, followed by Chula Vista. We know that. And then Escondido. How could we conceive of helping our good neighbors, east, south, north, west, when our community is forgotten, underserved? Where is the money, Mayor Gloria and the 10 elected officials? This is practically the reason why housing is a failure. Sir Mario, I'm sorry, you're leaving, but please hear us. Something is wrong. And thank you, Sandag. You are spreading the very reason why the federal, the state, and the locals are, and including, of course, San Diegans, taxpayer, to pursue a mission not only on mobility and transportation. This is the real thing now. Clean air, I think the tribal county, the southern community badly need this. And where is the air pollution control district? They need clean water, you heard it. And where is the county water authority here? Where are the IPA? State and...
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Truth Online, followed by Blair Beekman.
Hey there, it's Truth. You know, just concur with Cesar Javier about the clean air, clean water, basic human stuff. I mean, I'm actually looking at a yellow sign right now. For those of you that don't know what that is, that means the water's not clean. So, you know, we all have something in common, but I really love a good Indian history lesson. It actually helps reveal the Mexico bias SANDAG has, because meanwhile, the tribal nations and the backcountry have been completely ignored. It's nice to see a slight change to that. In fact, I almost think the chairman of Mesa Grande should just run SANDAG. I feel like we'd all be doing a lot better. But most workers are not living where they work because it has to do with cost of living. That's what it comes down to. That's why there's an exodus to Riverside County and even out of the state. Now, what is the solution? Well, actually, let's go to the beginning. How did it happen? How did we get here where California is now unaffordable for the people that used to live there? And the answer is policies. It's state policies. A lot of the people you guys probably voted for have ruined the state. You know, when you build more stacking packs, what you do is you gentrify an area. You raise the prices for everyone else who lives there and is no longer gets to be a local. They have to flee. When you start putting VMT requirements, mitigation fees on developers, well, then the housing suddenly goes up and then people can't afford it. But I'll tell you another thing, people don't want to live where they work because that's what communist China does. And that's why they put up nets outside the Apple factory so they don't commit suicide. So maybe instead of employment centers, SANDAG should focus on shopping centers and sports centers because people are more likely to take transit if there's a stop next to a business or a stadium. But for picking up groceries or going to work, people are going to need a car. That's just normal. But if you want to help with some of the other regional issues other than what was covered, you're going to need a bullet train from Riverside County to San Diego County and more ferry landings. But other than that, I'm glad that there is some tribal representation and projects finally happening. Thank you.
Our last public comment is Blair Beekman.
Hi, thank you, Blair Beekman. Yeah, I was going to offer something of the same words. It's really nice to see two tribal groups speaking on issues today. It's just nice to hear their concerns and needs and what we can be working towards. I don't know if how do you talk about levels of income housing for those areas, possibly, if that's a legitimate question. I would be interested in those types of conversations, how that can be an open conversation and how that can develop. I think it can simply give good examples what cities of San Diego County really need to more talk about. I know mixed income housing, the different ways you can talk about mixed income housing is important to San Diego County housing issues. But once we start talking about very low and extremely low income housing for tribal areas, hopefully that can create good examples for other Bay Area city, not Bay Area, San Diego County cities. And so good luck in these efforts. I will be traveling back to San Diego County in early February. And so I'll be moving from the San Francisco Bay Area. So it'll be good to see you guys then. Thank you. Thank you for this item.
That concludes our public comment on this item, Chair.
If we don't have any member comments, I want to thank Stacy and Naomi. This is just such a subject that we can go on. And as we saw today, there's so much to talk about, so much to work with. But we do appreciate the dedication of this presentation. Thank you again. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Robin because item 4.2, we're about to lose quorum. So can you give us a brief explanation on that?
Sure. So I think we'll bring back an update on the border resiliency plan to this committee at your next meeting. But in the meantime, we did want to let you know that we do have a live survey out now. We would appreciate everyone's help in helping get the word out on that. We want to hear from the community. You can find it at sandag.org/BRP. And we're also going to be hosting an open house on February 17th. We want to hear from everyone about what their experiences are when it comes to resiliency along the border and environmental hazards. So with that, that's our update.
Thank you so much for making it down and Baja California for joining us. I just want to mention how important it is that we have this new dialogue, and every single item in this meeting I know provokes so many questions, so many comments, and I do appreciate that. I do appreciate the participation. And the next Borders Committee will be on April 24th at 1:30 p.m. Thank you again, and we'll see you back in a couple of months.